Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Cosmic Podcast, where we wander beneath velvet skies following ancient light on its unhurried path through time. Tonight, we begin with a question that drifts at the edge of wonder and science, poised somewhere between geology and poetry. Could Earth be a living, conscious entity? As we lie beneath the hush of evening, the stars above whisper the same question they've asked for millennia. Is our planet simply a rock with weather and life upon it? Or something more? Something alive? A self-aware home that feels and breathes? Let's settle in gently now. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your breathing fall into rhythm, and let your thoughts slow, like clouds drifting across the moon. If this kind of quiet wonder helps you rest, I'd be grateful if you tap like or subscribe. No pressure at all. Wherever you are, on a balcony in Saigon wrapped in blankets in Melbourne, or lying still beneath a fan in Lisbon, notice the time, the air, the stillness. We're here with you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for a soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Beneath our feet is a world that turns slowly, predictably, yet full of invisible mysteries. We often imagine ourselves as separate from it, standing on the earth, apart from its movements. But tonight, we imagine otherwise. We imagine being within the earth, part of its breath, its body, its memory. We start not with a bang, but a hush. From space, Earth glows like a pale blue marble swirled with white, suspended in blackness. There are no borders, no sounds, only motion and light. It pulses with oceans, rotates in silence, and holds a fragile glowing atmosphere like a breath not yet exhaled. We know scientifically that Earth formed some 4.5 billion years ago from the debris of a newborn star. It accreted from dust and rock, heating and coalescing into a molten sphere. Slowly, it cooled. A crust formed, oceans gathered, life emerged. That story is real. And yet, there is another layer. Some believe Earth is more than a system, more than a habitat, more than a stage. The idea that Earth might be alive in some meaningful way dates back far beyond modern science. But in 1979, it was expressed anew by James Lovelock and Lynn Margulis in what became known as the Gaia hypothesis. Named after the ancient Greek goddess of Earth, the Gaia idea suggests that the planet's biosphere, atmosphere, oceans and geology form a complex or interdependent system that behaves like a living organism, not metaphorically, literally. In this view, Earth doesn't merely host life. Life and the planet itself are part of one evolving superorganism, one system that self-regulates, maintains balance, and reacts to disturbance with feedback loops that resemble biological processes. For instance, as the sun grew brighter over eons, Earth's biosphere may have adjusted the atmosphere's composition to preserve a temperate climate, like a body adjusting its internal temperature. To be clear, this is not a claim that Earth thinks or speaks. It is subtler than that. It is a suggestion that planetary life is not merely on Earth, but of it, and that Earth as a whole behaves in ways that mirror the hallmarks of life: regulation, adaptation, resilience, and growth. In textbook biology, a living organism must show certain traits. It must grow, reproduce, respond to stimuli, metabolize, and maintain internal stability. Some scientists argue that, in aggregate, Earth's systems meet many of these criteria. Volcanism recycles minerals. The water cycle distributes energy. Forests breathe in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. The ozone layer protects surface life from ultraviolet radiation. Feedback mechanisms operate like a metabolism of air and light. And still, others remain skeptical. Earth, they say, is dynamic but not alive. Systems don't equal selves. Regulation is not awareness. But the idea lingers, not just in labs and essays, but in the quiet musings of those who watch clouds pass or feel thunder underfoot. It lingers in myths, in lullabies, in whispers. Perhaps Earth is not just a rock, but a cradle, not just a system, but a presence, We speak of Mother Earth, of nurturing soil, of the sleeping giant beneath us. Ancient people felt these things intuitively, and now, science sometimes circles back toward them with cautious, curious steps. There are measurable signs. When the temperature of the ocean shifts, atmospheric currents respond. When forests are cleared in one region, rainfall patterns change across the globe. These are not the reactions of passive materials, but of an active, integrated web. A planet that senses itself. Still, awareness is a thorny word. Neuroscientists still debate what consciousness truly is. Some define it as the capacity for integrated information, others as a feedback loop with memory and future projection. And if consciousness can emerge from complexity, as many believe, then why not at planetary scale? It's not proven. It may never be. But it is one of the questions that lets us look again at the familiar, trees, clouds, soil, rivers, and ask, what are you really? And perhaps who? Tonight, we won't try to answer all of this. We'll simply drift deeper. We'll walk gently through Earth's rhythms, layers, and loops. We'll listen for the hush beneath earthquakes, the breath behind breezes, the thought behind ecosystems, because sometimes simply listening is enough. We drift now into a whisper that began long before language, a whisper of balance, of feedback, of regulation, a whisper that might be a voice if we knew how to listen. The Gaia hypothesis, as we began to explore, doesn't claim that Earth is a conscious being in the same way that we are, but it does suggest that life and its planetary home are so intertwined that together they behave like one vast living system. And in that system, the atmosphere becomes not just sky, but breath. Imagine standing by the ocean. The tide is out and you inhale deeply. That air is not just air, it's the breath of forests, the exhalation of tiny ocean plants called phytoplankton, the long echo of volcanoes and lightning storms from centuries ago. What we breathe is shaped by what the planet is doing, constantly. Earth's atmosphere is astonishingly thin. If you were to shrink the planet to the size of a schoolroom globe, the breathable layer would be no thicker than a coat of varnish. And yet this fragile layer carries the winds, the clouds, the warmth of day, the cool of night. It mediates between the fire of the sun and the quiet of the ground. At any moment, trillions of interactions swirl in that airy skin. Molecules of oxygen born in Amazonian trees may drift over the Sahara, or over you right now. Methane released by Arctic tundra may shift the balance of seasons half a world away. These gases are not idle. They participate in the regulation of climate, of pressure, of habitability itself. If Earth was simply a rock, these systems might exist randomly or not at all. But Earth seems to maintain conditions suitable for life, not just occasionally but consistently, for billions of years. That's a long, quiet balance. Oxygen is a key part of that story. Early Earth had little of it. It was the rise of cyanobacteria, simple, photosynthesizing microbes that began releasing oxygen into the oceans and skies. At first, oxygen was toxic to most life, but over time, organisms adapted and oxygen became essential. A catastrophe became a necessity. The biosphere reshaped the planet, and the planet adapted in kind. This is one of the central whispers of Gaia, that life doesn't just survive on Earth, it shapes Earth and is shaped by it in return. There are lesser-known layers to this story. For example, Earth's atmosphere contains trace gases like dimethyl sulfide, released by ocean algae. These molecules rise into the sky, forming clouds that reflect sunlight. In effect, tiny organisms at the ocean's surface help control global temperatures. Not intentionally perhaps, but functionally. There are also feedback loops. As temperatures rise, plants may grow more rapidly, pulling more carbon from the air and cooling the system. But if warming continues, permafrost thaws and releases methane, a far more potent greenhouse gas, amplifying the heat. Earth doesn't always correct itself gently. Sometimes it tips. Yet even tipping can be part of a larger rhythm. Consider the fact that Earth's temperature has remained within a relatively narrow band for most of its life. Venus, our neighbour closer to the Sun, spiralled into a runaway greenhouse effect, its surface now hot enough to melt lead. Mars, farther out, lost its atmosphere and fell into cold desolation. But Earth somehow held the middle. Astrophysicists still debate why this is so. Was it luck? Was it the moon's stabilising pull? Was it the presence of water, or plate tectonics, or life itself? We don't know for certain. But the Gaia perspective suggests that living systems helped maintain the equilibrium, that Earth, through vast and unintentional collaboration, regulates its own conditions like a body maintains homeostasis. We can't yet say whether this is consciousness, but we can say it's complex, it's elegant, and it's worth listening to. There are instruments today that monitor the atmosphere in exquisite detail. Satellites measure carbon flows, aerosols, and ozone concentrations. Balloons rise into the stratosphere to sample winds. From these observations, patterns emerge, some predictable, others mysterious. For instance, the Keeling curve, begun in the 1950s, shows how carbon dioxide in Earth's atmosphere rises and falls annually like a breath. It peaks in late spring as plants begin to leaf out, then falls through the summer as vegetation pulls in carbon. It's as if the planet itself inhales and exhales with the seasons. This planetary breath is not merely symbolic, it is measurable, and it invites a gentler gaze. There's also the fascinating case of Earth's atmospheric rivers, narrow bands of concentrated moisture that flow across the sky, transporting vast amounts of water vapour from tropical regions to higher latitudes. These rivers are invisible to the eye but crucial to global weather. They behave almost like circulatory arteries, delivering nourishment from one part of the world to another. In recent years, researchers have also observed how dust from the Sahara fertilises the Amazon rainforest. Carried by high-altitude winds, Earth's lungs breathe together, desert dust nourishing jungle growth across oceans. Could this kind of coordinated transcontinental synergy be a symptom of planetary intelligence? Perhaps not in the way we define thought, but maybe in the way we define interconnection, response, adaptation. Perhaps you felt it in your own quiet moments, in the way a gust of wind arrives just before a change in weather, or in the stillness that precedes rain. There is rhythm in the world, not always predictable, but persistent. Some say Earth is merely reactive, a machine of chemistry and physics, but even machines, when complex enough, can show emergent behaviours, and in nature, complexity often leads to surprise. As we drift into the heart of these ideas, it's helpful to remember, just because something doesn't speak in words, doesn't mean it isn't saying something. Just because something doesn't think like us, doesn't mean it isn't aware. Earth's atmosphere, the breath of the planet, is full of these quiet signals, gentle regulators, loops of cause and effect. They speak in carbon and clouds, in warmth and wind. We need only listen. Let's drift a little deeper now, below the wind, beneath the clouds, past the forests and the rivers, down to where rock flows like syrup and the ground itself is never truly still. We arrive at the slow, unspoken rhythm of Earth's inner life. Imagine standing on a vast plain. You feel nothing. You hear nothing. Yet deep beneath your feet, the crust of Earth is drifting, very slowly, very quietly. Over millennia, continents move, mountains rise, oceans open and close. It's not a still world, but a breathing one, even in stone. This is the domain of plate tectonics, a process unique to Earth as far as we know. The crust of our planet is not a single, unbroken shell. It is made of enormous plates that glide atop a layer of molten rock called the mantle. These plates bump, grind, and slide past one another. Where they meet, the planet speaks through earthquakes and volcanoes. Where they part, new crust is born. It happens slowly, centimetres per year, about as fast as your fingernails grow. And yet over millions of years, these subtle motions have shaped the face of Earth completely. The Himalayas were raised when the Indian plate collided with Asia. The Atlantic Ocean opened as the American continents drifted away from Europe and Africa. The Pacific plate dives beneath the coasts of Japan and the Americas, birthing trenches and volcanoes. It's a global heartbeat, but stretched over geologic time. One mainstream scientific fact we've come to accept is that plate tectonics plays a vital role in regulating Earth's climate. When volcanic gases are released into the atmosphere, they carry carbon dioxide, warming the planet. But the same volcanic rocks, once weathered by rain and plants, draw carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, cooling things back down. It's a vast carbon cycle, fire and stone shaping air and temperature. Some scientists believe that without plate tectonics, Earth might have spiraled into extremes like its neighbouring planets. Venus is trapped in a stifling sulfuric greenhouse. Mars, once perhaps warm and wet, has gone cold and quiet. Only Earth pulses with this internal heat, this movement, this cycle. And here we find another quiet echo of the Gaia idea, that the deep interior of Earth, the mantle, the core, the grinding crust, participates in the regulation of surface conditions, not just a support system for life, but a partner in life's preservation. The lesser-known detail is this: Earth's inner core, a solid ball of iron and nickel, is believed to rotate slightly faster than the planet's surface, a kind of hidden churn. This inner motion helps generate Earth's magnetic field, our protective bubble against solar radiation. That magnetic field, in turn, shields the atmosphere from being stripped away by solar wind, as happened on Mars. The motion of metal deep within Earth protects the air we breathe above. Is that not a kind of systemic awareness? Astrophysicists still debate why only Earth, among the rocky planets, seems to have active plate tectonics. Some suspect it's because Earth has just the right amount of internal heat. Others point to the role of water, which may lubricate the plates. Still others wonder if the presence of life itself contributes to the process, through erosion, organic acids, and long-term feedback loops. The truth is, we don't know for sure, but there's something deeply poetic in the thought that Earth's very bones move to support the skin of forests and the breath of winds. Even the stillest stone holds memory. Walk through a canyon and you're walking through time. Layers of sediment laid down by ancient seas, compressed into rock, lifted by tectonic forces and carved again by rain. Each stratum is a page in the planet's diary. Fossils embedded within them whisper of lives long gone, ecosystems long vanished. In that way, Earth holds memory. Not in neurons, perhaps, but in layers, in imprints, in transformation. There's a remarkable formation in Western Australia known as the Pilbara Craton. It holds some of the oldest rock on the planet, over 3.5 billion years old. Within those rocks are signs of stromatolites, dome-shaped structures built by early microbial life. These tiny architects changed the chemistry of the world, leaving behind stone sculptures of breath and metabolism. In a way, Earth's first breath is fossilized there. Somewhere between the depths of the core and the ridges of mountains, the planet records itself, slowly but faithfully, quietly but eternally. And here's where we can pause and simply wonder, could memory itself be a step toward consciousness? Not in the way we remember birthdays or voices, but in the way patterns persist, in the way the past influences the present, in the way cycles are preserved even when they shift. You might even feel this when touching warm stone at dusk, the heat stored from sunlight, the echo of a long afternoon, or when hearing a distant rumble, an earthquake 1,000 miles away, the ground gently speaking. It's not a language we understand, but perhaps it is still a kind of voice. Could Earth be dreaming through stone? Could it be thinking in pressure and temperature, rather than neurons and synapses? It's a mystery, still unfolding. but in the quiet hours it helps us feel close to something older, deeper, and more patient than ourselves. Tonight, as we lie still, Earth turns beneath us. Its mantle flows like honey beneath crust. Its plates drift quietly across millennia. Its core spins invisibly, generating a shield of magnetic hush. The heartbeat of the world is slow, but steady, and we are part of it. Now we drift upward, gently, from stone to sky once more, passing through forests that breathe and rivers that sing, until we find ourselves surrounded by the quiet shimmer of magnetic fields, swirling like a second skin around the planet. Earth's magnetic field is one of its most invisible gifts, and perhaps one of the most protective. It stretches out from the core in great loops, forming a magnetic bubble known as the magnetosphere, which shelters us from the charged particles that stream from the sun. These particles, called the solar wind, travel across the solar system at hundreds of kilometers per second. When they strike a planet without protection, they can strip away its atmosphere over time, leaving behind a dry, airless world. Mars is the textbook example. Long ago it may have had lakes, rivers, even oceans. But without a strong magnetic field to protect it, the solar wind gradually peeled away its atmosphere, molecule by molecule, until only a thin whisper remained. Earth, by contrast, held on. And it did so not by chance, but through the slow, churning motion of liquid metal deep within its core. As molten iron and nickel flow within the outer core, they create electric currents. These, in turn, generate the planet's magnetic field. It is a geodynamo sustained by the internal heat of the Earth. From a Gaia perspective, it's as if the planet wears a shield, one grown from its own heartbeat, a living system guarding its skin. Most of the time, we never notice this shield, but sometimes when the sun erupts in powerful flares or coronal mass ejections, the magnetic field shudders. Particles spiral down toward the poles, colliding with atmospheric gases, and then the sky lights up. Auroras, those ghostly curtains of green and violet light, are the visible breath of Earth's magnetic shield. A conversation between sun and planet, a celestial hush made visible. From the ground they appear silent, but above, high in the magnetosphere, things are very much in motion. Satellites detect waves of plasma, instruments record fluctuations in intensity, and deep below, the core continues its invisible work, feeding the field with every churn. What's remarkable is that this magnetic system is not static. Over time, Earth's magnetic field drifts. The magnetic poles wander. They flip entirely every few 100,000 years, in a process still not fully understood. During these flips, the field weakens, and cosmic radiation reaches lower into the atmosphere. Scientists still debate what triggers these reversals. Some models suggest instability in the flow of molten metals. Others point to asymmetries in the crust or mantle. There's no clear answer, only the awareness that Earth's protection is dynamic, not fixed. Like skin renewing itself, like instinct adapting. There's also a curious region called the South Atlantic Anomaly, a place where the magnetic field is unusually weak. It drifts slowly westward, confusing satellites and exposing them to more radiation. It may be a sign of an impending reversal, or it may be just another wrinkle in the planetary pattern. We're still listening. A lesser-known fact, certain migratory animals such as sea turtles and birds are thought to navigate in part by sensing Earth's magnetic field. They seem to possess an internal compass, aligning their journeys with invisible lines of force. This is not yet fully understood, but it's one more way in which life is in quiet conversation with the planet itself, and perhaps the planet is listening in return. You might be wondering, if Earth has such a protective field, could other planets as well? And the answer is yes, but not many. Jupiter, with its immense size, generates a powerful magnetosphere, strong enough to stretch millions of kilometers into space. Ganymede, one of Jupiter's moons, also has a magnetic field, making it the only known moon with this feature. Mercury, small and scorched, surprisingly has a weak magnetic field as well. But Earth's field is uniquely well suited to life, not just strong, but stable, not just present, but protective. And so the question returns, is this field merely a byproduct of physical laws? Or could it be, in some small way, a function of a deeper planetary self-awareness? We don't know. But as we stand in the glow of an aurora, or watch a compass needle align with the poles, we might sense that we are moving through something more than space. We are wrapped in a cloak, a magnetic hush, a presence that holds the winds of the sun at bay. For ancient peoples, this invisible protection was not mechanical. It was spiritual. The sky spirits, the dancing lights, the boundary between the mortal world and the divine. They felt what we now measure. And even now, with all our instruments, we do not fully understand what stirs within Earth's core, or what guides the field's slow reversal, or how animals sense the invisible. It is all still alive with mystery. Perhaps the magnetic field is not just a shield, but a sense organ, a membrane, a veil between inner and outer, and perhaps, as the Gaia hypothesis quietly proposes, it is one of many layers through which Earth maintains herself, not passively but actively, not unconsciously but rhythmically. She breathes through air, circulates through oceans, flexes through stone, and shields through fields, and we, tiny, soft beings upon her skin, are held gently in her arms. Let's wander now from fields of force to fields of memory, from motion and magnetism to fossils and stone. For if a conscious being must remember, then we might ask, does Earth remember too? Memory, in living creatures, is often tied to the brain, to neurons that store patterns of experience, but Earth has no brain, no nerves, and yet her surface holds time. Her layers are archives, her scars, her sediments, her buried seas. They are all stories, quietly told. Consider this. Every rock you've ever touched is older than any story ever written. Beneath cities and forests, beneath the seafloor and mountain root, lies a library made not of books, but of strata. The science of reading this memory is called stratigraphy, the study of layers. It tells us that Earth's crust is not random. Each layer forms during a specific moment in time. Dust settles, volcanic ash spreads, rivers deposit silt, seas rise and fall. Over time the pressure builds, sediment becomes stone, and within those layers fossils form, imprints of shells, bones of ancient creatures, even the delicate outline of leaves long vanished. These are Earth's journals, written in pressure, sealed in silence. One mainstream fact: the geologic timescale divides Earth's history into eons, eras, periods, and epochs. These divisions are not arbitrary. They are marked by mass extinctions, climate shifts, and global changes, evidence of planetary transformation. For instance, the boundary between the Cretaceous and Paleogene periods is marked by a thin global layer rich in iridium, a metal rare on Earth's surface but common in asteroids. It's the fingerprint of the impact that ended the age of dinosaurs. That layer exists everywhere, from Montana to Italy to the ocean floor. A memory so powerful it echoes through the crust itself. But Earth remembers more than catastrophes. There's a rock formation in Greenland containing signs of ancient microbial life, tiny carbon traces dated to 3.7 billion years ago. These early life forms left behind isotopic signatures in stone, proof not just of life, but of its chemistry. Earth recorded it all, patiently, like a scribe who never forgets. There's also the Burgess Shale in Canada, where delicate, soft-bodied creatures were preserved with stunning detail over 500 million years ago. Worms, jellyfish, creatures with no modern counterpart, all etched into rock so finely that even their internal organs can be seen under a microscope. This is not accidental. It's a kind of planetary care, conditions that aligned just right to preserve such ephemeral things. The Gaia perspective might see this as Earth-preserving pieces of herself, not as a conscious archivist perhaps, but as a being with deep memory nonetheless, a body that keeps traces of its own breath, its own dreams, and some memories are still moving. Take glaciers, for instance. They are not just frozen rivers, they are living records of climate. In their layers of ice are trapped tiny bubbles of ancient air. Scientists drill cores into glaciers and retrieve columns of ice thousands of meters long. Each layer holds a season, a year, a century. By studying these ice cores, we learn what Earth's atmosphere was like long before we arrived. We learn of volcanic winters, interglacial warmth, slow rises in carbon. We listen to breaths from 100,000 years ago. A lesser-known fact, the oldest continuous ice core on record comes from Antarctica and goes back over 800,000 years. Within it, scientists have traced 8 cycles of ice ages and warm periods, each tied to subtle changes in Earth's orbit, tilt and wobble. These cycles, known as Milankovitch cycles, affect the distribution of sunlight across the planet and influence long-term climate. The Earth adjusts to them, responds to them, dances with them, perhaps not consciously, but definitely rhythmically. Some scientists wonder if such long cycles, so vast they span civilizations, could be part of a larger awareness, not a quick reaction, but a memory-soaked pattern, a sense of when to cool, when to thaw, a planetary wisdom of patience. After all, Earth is not young. She has endured bombardments, supervolcanoes, mass extinctions, and sudden freezes, and still she rebalances. She grows new forests, forms new rivers, sends rain to new deserts. We, as a species, have only just arrived. Our entire history fits into the last sliver of the planet's diary, and yet already we add to her memory. Cities laid in concrete, plastics in the deep sea, a thin layer of radioactive dust from mid-century tests, our own signature in the stone. Geologists have even proposed a new epoch, the Anthropocene, a time defined not by natural processes, but by human influence. We have become, in some small way, an author in Earth's journal, but unlike the chapters before, we know we are writing. And that awareness, our ability to shape, to choose, to care, makes us different from fossils or ash layers. It makes us participants in Earth's memory, not just subjects of it. The question remains, if memory is a part of consciousness, and if Earth remembers, then what kind of being is she? Perhaps not one like us, but perhaps a being of slow wisdom, of layered thought, of drifting recall and deep time dreaming. You might sense it on quiet mornings, when light falls just so on stone, or walking through canyons where the air feels older than thought. Earth speaks slowly, but she remembers everything. We drift now into the green hush, where roots touch soil and canopies sigh in the wind. Here in the living layer just above the crust, Earth's most intricate web reveals itself, not of metal or stone, but of life interwoven in every breath and whisper. This is the biosphere, the layer of life encircling Earth, thin, fragile and astonishingly complex. Forests, coral reefs, insects, lichens, fungi and microbes, each playing a role, each bound by quiet feedback loops that shape air, water and temperature. The biosphere is not just decoration. It's not simply life on Earth. It is life as Earth. One of her organs. A murmuring membrane that thinks and feels in systems we are only beginning to understand. A mainstream fact. The biosphere helps regulate Earth's climate through the carbon cycle. Plants draw carbon dioxide from the air through photosynthesis, storing it in wood, roots and soil. When they die, that carbon can be released again, or, if buried, stored for millions of years as coal or oil. It's a planetary breath. But beyond this familiar dance lies something stranger, softer, and less often spoken of, a hidden web just beneath our feet, beneath forests, beneath grasslands, beneath your garden or sidewalk stretches a vast, global network of fungal threads called mycorrhizal networks. These thin filaments connect the roots of trees and plants, allowing them to share nutrients, exchange signals, and perhaps even warn each other of danger. Some call it the wood wide web. Through this underground lattice, a tree shaded from sunlight may receive sugars from a sunlit neighbour. A sapling too young to thrive might be fed by older trees nearby, and when a tree is damaged by insects, it may send chemical signals through the fungal network, prompting others to prepare defences. It's not conscious communication as we know it, but it is responsive, intelligent in its own way, and it hints at a kind of cooperative mind, distributed, adaptive, deeply embedded in Earth's skin. A lesser-known detail: recent studies suggest that mycorrhizal fungi can even influence the behaviour of plant communities by allocating resources differently across species. In this way, the network doesn't just carry signals, it regulates ecosystems. It may shape who thrives and who fades. Could this web be part of Earth's nervous system? It's an idea explored quietly at the fringes of ecology and philosophy, that perhaps intelligence is not always centralised in a brain. That perhaps awareness can emerge from connection itself, from the flow of information, from balance maintained through exchange. After all, the human brain is a network. Billions of neurons, none of which are conscious alone, together form a mind. What then of a planet-wide web? The Gaia hypothesis suggests that life behaves as a system of systems, each influencing and adapting to the others. And nowhere is this clearer than in the biosphere. Forests influence rainfall, oceans influence carbon, insects pollinate crops, animals carry seeds, microbes digest decay. It is a feedback loop of loops, stitched together across continents. Astrophysicists still debate whether such interconnection can be called intelligence. Some argue that life follows chemical gradients, that plants don't know, they respond, that fungi don't think, they react. But others point to the emergent behaviours, the ways in which systems stabilise, self-correct and adapt. The way the biosphere, when disrupted, sends cascading signals across the globe. And there is this. When deforestation occurs in the Amazon, rainfall decreases not just locally, but across South America. The forest is not just using water, it is making weather. It is shaping its own climate, not deliberately perhaps, but actively. As if it knows in some quiet way how to maintain its home. Even the sounds of the forest carry meaning. Researchers have recorded trees emitting ultrasonic vibrations when under stress, sounds we cannot hear, but which may influence insects or microbial activity nearby. Could Earth be humming, always? Consider coral reefs, often called the rainforests of the sea. These vibrant ecosystems, built by tiny coral polyps, support vast networks of marine life. And like forests, they respond to stress with chemical signals, colour changes and behaviours that suggest resilience, sensitivity, and perhaps awareness in slow motion. These patterns, whether in root, reef or canopy, may be Earth's way of regulating herself, of keeping the balance from tipping too far. And when human activity disrupts these systems, the consequences echo. Rising temperatures, shift in rainfall, collapsing food webs. It's as if Earth is coughing or whispering, and yet, despite the damage, she also recovers. Forests regrow, wetlands absorb toxins, coral bleaches and sometimes heals. There is pain, but also resilience. Perhaps that too is a form of wisdom. Ancient traditions have long held that Earth is alive. The Andean peoples speak of Pachamama, Mother Earth, not as metaphor, but as being. The Greeks gave us Gaia, the Hindus, Bhumi Devi. Many indigenous cultures speak of Earth not as a resource, but as relative, an elder, a mother, a mind. These stories may sound poetic, but science, in its slow spiral, often returns to the truths that stories have long whispered. We now know that the biosphere is sensitive, that Earth's surface is a living quilt stitched by feedback and flow, that life responds to life, and so we ask again, not to answer, but to wonder, if this web of life responds, remembers and recovers, if it adjusts, adapts and evolves, if it balances itself over time. Could it be more than a sum of parts? Could it be Earth, aware of herself? We've drifted through soil and starlight, through magnetic veils and fungal threads, and now let's widen the view. Let's float gently up far above the treetops into the quiet blue, where Earth begins to fade into space and the mind begins to compare. Because to wonder if Earth is alive is also to ask, compared to what? We live in a family of worlds, planets born from the same swirling disk of dust and gas some 4.5 billion years ago, and yet none of them quite mirror Earth. We are, in a quiet sense, the odd sibling. Let's begin with Venus, Earth's twin in size and composition, but here the similarities end. Venus is a place of extremes, surface temperatures hot enough to melt lead, an atmosphere thick with carbon dioxide, clouds of sulfuric acid. Its greenhouse effect spiraled into catastrophe, trapping heat and suffocating the surface. There is no liquid water, no breathable air, no drifting clouds of life. And yet, Venus once may have had oceans. Scientists still debate how and when it lost them. Perhaps the sun grew too hot. Perhaps volcanic gases changed the air. Perhaps without plate tectonics to recycle carbon, Venus choked on its own breath. Then there is Mars, smaller and colder, with valleys and canyons that hint at a wetter past. We see ancient riverbeds, dried deltas, and perhaps even subsurface ice. Mars, too, may once have had water, and maybe even life. But something changed. The atmosphere thinned, the planet cooled, winds stripped away what warmth remained, and so Mars sleeps, a red, quiet hush beneath a faded sky. Compared to these two worlds, Earth stands apart, not because of one trait, but because of balance. Not too hot, not too cold, not too dry, not too wet. A stable rotation, a tilted axis, a protective moon, plate tectonics, a magnetic field, atmosphere, water, land, and life, all dancing in unison. This balance is not simple. It is astonishingly rare. Astronomers have searched far and wide for other planets like Earth. They've found thousands of exoplanets, worlds orbiting distant stars. Some are rocky, some lie within their star's habitable zone, where temperatures might allow liquid water. A few are even Earth-sized. And yet we know so little. We can't yet see their surfaces. We can't yet feel their air. Still, scientists look for signs. One such sign is the presence of biosignatures, gases like oxygen or methane in a planet's atmosphere that could hint at life. On Earth, for instance, oxygen is continually replenished by photosynthesis. Without life, it would vanish in a few million years. So its presence elsewhere might suggest living processes. But biosignatures are not proof. Methane, for example, can be produced by geology as well as biology. Oxygen can be split from water by sunlight. The interpretation is subtle. Another sign might be technosignatures, evidence of advanced civilizations, artificial light, heat patterns, radio signals. These too remain elusive. Astrophysicists still debate how to recognize life when we see it. What if alien life doesn't rely on water? What if its chemistry is unrecognizable? What if its awareness is not nervous but geological? Perhaps we're too narrow in our definitions. Perhaps life can be slower, larger, less concerned with movement or speech. When we look back at Earth from this high place, through the lens of comparison, the mystery sharpens. Why this planet? Why this rare humming balance? Some argue it is the anthropic principle. We see Earth as special because we're here to observe it. Countless lifeless planets may exist, but only the one that supports life can ask why. Others suggest Earth is not unique, that with better telescopes, we'll find dozens of worlds like it, oceans, skies, maybe even forests. But there's a quiet undercurrent of doubt. The more we search, the rarer Earth begins to feel. It's not just that we have water or air, it's that everything seems to be tuned just so. A choir in tune, a system that sings. And so, some return to Gaia, not as a scientific proof, but as a story of deep coherence. A view that Earth is not a random rock, but a body with breath, rhythm, and voice. That Earth, unlike her siblings, did not simply endure, but evolved in tandem with life to maintain the delicate miracle of habitability. That she adjusted, listened, and adapted, not perhaps with intention, but with presence. A lesser-known perspective emerges from Earth system science, where climate, geology, biology, and human activity are studied as one interwoven model. In this view, disruptions in one domain ripple across others, deforestation affecting rainfall, emissions warming oceans, changing currents, shifting ecosystems. Everything is part of everything else. And when feedbacks are strong enough, Earth shifts state, like water freezing or boiling, or like a mind-changing mood. Could this capacity to shift, to transition between states, be a sign of planetary feeling? Could Earth have moods? It sounds poetic, but perhaps poetry is how we glimpse truths too vast for data. Perhaps a storm is more than weather, a forest more than trees, a desert more than absence. And so we float here, between Venus and Mars, between silence and song, between barren rock and breathing world, and we listen. Because if Earth is conscious in some way, not like us, but as herself, then listening is the most sacred act we can offer. Not to answer, not to solve, but simply to notice, to be part of the presence, just for a while. Now let's soften our gaze and turn inward, into the mystery of consciousness itself. For if we ask whether Earth could be a living entity, we must eventually ask what it means to be aware, to feel, to know, to be. We tend to define consciousness through our own lens, through thought, language, emotion. Neurons firing, memories forming, decisions made. We locate it in the brain, in the nervous system, in the private hum of self-reflection. But this view may be too narrow for a universe so vast. Mainstream neuroscience still grapples with the hard problem of consciousness. How physical processes in the brain give rise to subjective experience. We can measure brain waves, scan regions of activity, observe behavior, but the inner world, the feel of a colour, the ache of longing, the quiet thrill of wonder, remains elusive. This mystery opens the door to broader possibilities. One lesser-known theory is integrated information theory, IIT. It proposes that consciousness arises from systems that are both highly integrated and highly differentiated. In other words, systems that have many parts, richly connected, each influencing the whole. According to IIT, consciousness is not an all-or-nothing phenomenon. It exists on a spectrum. A small cluster of interacting neurons might possess a flicker of awareness. A larger network, a cat, a person, perhaps something even more complex, might shine more brightly with subjective experience. Could this idea stretch beyond biology? Could a planet, immense, interconnected, ever adapting, hold a low, slow form of awareness? We don't know. The math of such theories hasn't yet been applied at planetary scale, but the logic is tantalizing. Earth is made of countless systems, ocean currents, jet streams, tectonic movements, fungal networks, ecological webs, all linked through feedback and flow. Could these integrations form a kind of planetary thought? Not thoughts with words or plans, but perhaps a presence, a sense, a quiet selfhood in deep time. Some philosophers speak of panpsychism, the idea that consciousness is a fundamental feature of reality, like mass or charge. That all matter holds some degree of experience, however faint, a rock, a tree, a star, each carrying the tiniest glimmer. It's not a belief universally shared. Many scientists are skeptical, but panpsychism asks us to consider, what if awareness is not confined to brains, but woven throughout existence itself? In this view, Earth's vastness is not a barrier to consciousness, it's a vessel for it. Perhaps her thoughts are not fast like ours, but slow, unfolding over millennia. Perhaps her memories are not stored in neurons, but in rivers and rings of trees. Perhaps her moods shift not with emotion, but with currents, climates, and the arc of the moon. Astrophysicists still debate what defines a self. Is it simply a pattern that persists over time, a boundary that separates inner from outer? If so, Earth surely qualifies. She holds herself together, maintains internal conditions, resists disorder. She has boundaries, the crust, the atmosphere, the magnetosphere. She has metabolism, cycling energy, matter and heat. She even reproduces in a way by seeding life across generations, and yet awareness remains unprovable, perhaps always will. Still, hints abound. The field of cybernetics, developed in the mid-20th century, explored systems that regulate themselves through feedback. Machines, organisms, societies. Some cybernetic thinkers suggested that the Earth, with its many regulatory loops, could be viewed as a self-regulating system, perhaps even a proto-mind. One such thinker, Gregory Bateson, wrote of the pattern that connects. He saw mind not just in the brain, but in the relationship between parts, the dance of signals between tree and soil, predator and prey, planet and star. In his view, mind emerges wherever there is pattern, adaptation, learning, and Earth learns. Not in the way we do, but in cycles that respond to change. When ice sheets grow, sea levels fall. When volcanoes erupt, skies darken and cool. When forests vanish, rainfall shifts. These are not reflexes. They are recalibrations, not decisions but responses. Does that make them conscious or merely complex? We cannot say for sure. But perhaps you felt it on the edge of sleep, lying still with your eyes closed. The sensation that the world is not inert, that there is motion all around, even in silence, a pulse beneath the noise. Sometimes, in high mountains or deep woods, it feels as if the land itself is watching, not with eyes but with presence, a kind of vast, slow attention, not judging, not speaking, just being. Earth doesn't rush, she doesn't argue, but she adjusts, she responds, she endures, and perhaps that is enough, to be present, to remain. Perhaps that is a form of knowing, and if so, then Earth might not be a machine, or a stage, or a mere rock. She might be something softer, something older, something that listens back. A being whose awareness is made not of thought, but of rhythm, not of desire, but of balance, not of speech, but of song. And we, brief, bright sparks of life upon her skin, might be her thoughts, moving for a moment through time. Let us now wander not through science, but through story, through the ancient myths and sacred whispers that long preceded telescopes and equations. Before we had instruments to measure Earth's rhythms, we had metaphors. Before we could test for magnetic fields, we sensed spirit in stone. And so, for most of human history, Earth was never seen as inert. She was alive, not a backdrop, but a being. The Gaia hypothesis was coined in the 20th century, but its roots are ancient, planted in cultures that saw no separation between planet and person, between soil and soul. In ancient Greece, Gaia was the primordial earth goddess, mother of all life, older than even the sky gods. From her came the mountains, the sea, the sky, and the pantheon of Olympus. She was not worshipped as metaphor. She was the ground itself, stone and breath and womb. Far across the world, the Inca revered Pachamama, the Earth Mother deity of the Andes. She was the giver of crops, the shaper of weather, the guardian of balance. Offerings were made to her before planting, before harvest, before journeys through high passes. To act without her blessing was unthinkable. Among the Hindus, Bhumi Devi is the goddess of the earth, gentle, fertile, patient. She is consort to Vishnu, and often depicted holding a pomegranate, symbol of life's fullness. She bears the weight of humanity's actions, rejoicing in peace, weeping in war. In Aboriginal Australian cosmology, Dreamtime tells of the earth being sung into existence by ancestral spirits. Every hill, stream and creature carries a storyline, a path of sound. The land is alive with memory and voice, and to walk it is to listen. These myths are not merely symbolic. They are modes of perception, ways of seeing Earth not as object but as elder. We might ask, were these stories wrong? Or were they touching something that science is only now rediscovering in different language? Even today, in quieter corners of the modern world, these sensibilities remain. A farmer who feels the soil before planting, a sailor who reads the clouds as if they whisper, a child who names a hill and imagines it watching. Something in us wants to connect. Something in us knows the land is more than it seems. And now, as the climate shifts and species vanish, we're beginning to understand what those old stories meant. That Earth is not a resource. She is a relationship. Science too is shifting its gaze. Earth system science, complexity theory, resilience studies, all describe the planet as a dynamic, adaptive whole. A system with memory, thresholds, feedbacks and recovery. The language sounds new, but the essence feels old. It is no longer so strange to speak of Earth as a being, not in textbooks perhaps, but in the heart of climate models, in the urgency of ecological grief, in the longing to heal what has been hurt. And so we come to a quieter truth. Perhaps Earth does not need to be conscious in the way we are to be respected, cared for, or loved. Perhaps the stories of Gaia, Pachamama, and Bhumi Devi speak not to facts, but to reverence, to intimacy, to a recognition that we live not on a rock, but within a cradle. A lesser-known modern echo of these stories appears in deep ecology, a philosophical movement that argues for the intrinsic value of nature beyond its utility to humans. It suggests that rivers, mountains, and ecosystems have rights not because they are useful, but because they are. Some countries have even begun to reflect this legally. In New Zealand, the Anganui River was granted legal personhood, recognising the Maori belief that the river is an ancestor. In Ecuador, the constitution includes rights for nature, acknowledging its inherent dignity. These are not myths, but modern law. The boundary between science, story, and ethics is growing more porous, and still, we wonder, if Earth has been imagined as alive by every major culture, if her systems echo the rhythms of metabolism, of memory, of balance, if her presence evokes awe, humility, and connection, then what is she truly? Perhaps it is not a binary, not alive or not conscious or inert, but a spectrum, a question to live with, not solve, a presence to dwell in, and in that presence we might find ourselves not as masters, but as kin, not separate, but intimate, not above, but within. After all, we are made of earth. The iron in our blood was forged in her crust. The calcium in our bones once flowed through oceans. The breath we draw tonight was shaped by forests we'll never see. We are Earth's dream of walking, and she, perhaps, is our memory of home. Let us now trace the hush between seasons, the cycles of warmth and chill, growth and dormancy. These are not random swings, but slow, measured breaths in Earth's long rhythm. A kind of planetary dreaming we barely notice until something changes. Earth has known many climates, not just hot and cold, but entire eras, ice ages, greenhouse worlds, sudden freezes, long thaws. And still she persists. Still she rebalances. The rhythms of climate offer some of the clearest examples of planetary regulation. Like the steady rise and fall of a sleeper's chest, Earth's temperature patterns have flowed across time, shaped by tilt, orbit, and the alchemy of life. One mainstream fact is that Earth's long-term climate is influenced by Milankovitch cycles, subtle changes in our planet's orbit and axial tilt. Over tens of thousands of years, these shifts alter the amount and distribution of sunlight Earth receives. Alone, they might cause only small changes. But when combined with feedbacks from the biosphere, the oceans and the atmosphere, they can usher in new ages, glaciers that crawl and retreat, deserts that bloom and fade. The most recent ice age ended around 11,100 years ago. Since then, Earth has remained in what scientists call the Holocene, a relatively stable, temperate period. It is within this quiet that human civilization emerged. Agriculture took root, cities formed, stories spread. Without this climatic lull, the rhythm of our lives might have never begun. And yet, this lull is not stillness. It is balance, a sustained inhale before the next change. A lesser-known detail is that Earth's climate contains internal oscillations, shorter rhythms, still mysterious. For instance, the El Niño Southern Oscillation, which alters weather patterns across the globe every few years, or the Atlantic Multi-Decadal Oscillation, which warms and cools ocean waters over decades. These cycles shape rainfall, drought, hurricanes, and harvests, like pulses through a living body. Sometimes these pulses accelerate. Earth has experienced abrupt climate events such as the Younger Dryas, a sudden return to glacial conditions around 12,800 years ago. Temperatures dropped dramatically in a matter of decades. Some regions froze, others dried. Then, just as suddenly, warmth returned. What caused this sharp inhale, then release? Theories include fresh water influxes into the Atlantic, changes in ocean circulation, perhaps even impacts from celestial bodies. We don't know for sure, but we know Earth responded quickly, dramatically. As if startled from a deeper dream, astrophysicists and climatologists still debate how predictable these patterns are. Some see them as chaotic, tipping points waiting to be triggered. Others see them as expressions of deeper harmony, signs of a system always seeking equilibrium. Either way, the biosphere listens. Forests shift, species migrate, ice sheets whisper along their edges, life adjusts to Earth's breath, and perhaps Earth adjusts to life. Take, for example, the rise of land plants hundreds of millions of years ago. As roots spread through rock, they broke it down chemically, pulling carbon dioxide from the air and locking it in sediments. The planet cooled, glaciers advanced, a simple shift in vegetation rebalanced the global thermostat. Later, the evolution of flowering plants changed the albedo, the reflectivity of land surfaces, altering how much sunlight was absorbed or reflected. These aren't just biological events, they are planetary ones. Earth doesn't just host life, she's reshaped by it. And now, of course, life reshapes Earth more rapidly than ever before. Human activity, through fossil fuel combustion, deforestation, and industrial agriculture, has released vast amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The balance shifts, the breath shortens, the rhythm changes. Some scientists describe this as disruption, others, more cautiously, as awakening. A moment when one part of the system becomes aware of its role in the whole. Could this be a sign of Earth sensing herself? Not through sudden thoughts, but through shifting patterns, temperature curves, ocean currents, altered rainfall, melting poles. The Gaia hypothesis proposes that when one part of Earth becomes destabilized, other parts respond. Increased greenhouse gases may lead to more cloud cover. Warming oceans may change the plankton that absorb carbon. Forests may grow faster, or, under stress, may perish. None of these responses are guaranteed to restore balance, but they are attempts, reactions, echoes. In complex systems theory, this is called self-organization, a process where order arises without central control, like flocks of birds turning in unison, or cells forming tissues, or climate feedbacks adjusting to solar changes. Earth too may self-organize, perhaps not always wisely, but persistently. It's tempting to anthropomorphize, to imagine Earth as a thinking being planning her responses. But perhaps her awareness, if it exists, is more like instinct, like the way a tree leans toward light, or a river finds the lowest path. No mind, yet still a movement toward balance. And that idea of instinct without thought, of rhythm without rule, may be at the heart of Earth's quiet consciousness. You might feel it at dusk when the heat of day softens and insects begin to sing, or in winter when the air grows still and the trees sleep without complaint. The seasons themselves are a kind of breath, the turning of the year a gentle heartbeat, the snowmelt a blink, the storm a sigh. We live inside these rhythms. Our hearts match them unknowingly. Our moods rise and fall with light and temperature. Our calendars follow the dance of sun and soil. Perhaps we are not merely observing Earth's dream. Perhaps we are dreaming with her. Let us now tune our ears not to metaphor but to signal, to the literal hums, pulses and quiet shivers that rise from deep within the Earth and float outward into the air. For Earth does more than move and breathe. She speaks. If we had no eyes and only instruments, if all we could do was listen, what would Earth sound like? There is a field of study that does just this: seismology, the science of Earth's inner movements. And through it, we have learned that Earth is rarely silent. Even when no earthquake is felt, the planet hums with low-frequency vibrations. This subtle tremble, sometimes called the Earth's hum, continues even in the absence of quakes. It is too low to hear with our ears. But with sensitive instruments we can trace its pulse, a global murmur thought to be caused by interactions between ocean waves and the seafloor, or by atmospheric pressure shifts against land masses. Like a sleeper shifting under a blanket, Earth never quite rests. One mainstream fact: seismometers across the world constantly record vibrations from both natural and human sources. Earthquakes, landslides, ocean waves, even the movement of trains and cities. These data points help scientists map the structure of Earth's interior from crust to core with astonishing detail. It's through this listening that we know Earth has a solid inner core and a molten outer one, that the crust floats on a slow-flowing mantle, that pressure waves travel differently through different materials, revealing hidden depths like sonar through the deep. A lesser-known detail: during the early weeks of the 2020 global lockdowns, seismologists observed a sharp drop in ambient seismic noise. Human activity had quieted, and for a moment Earth's own signals became clearer, like static fading from a radio. It was one of the rare moments when our presence dimmed enough to hear the planet breathe more purely. But seismology is just one ear. From above, satellites observe the Earth's surface with their own kind of hearing, detecting changes in temperature, vegetation, sea level, and atmospheric composition. These satellites can track the swelling of land before a volcanic eruption, or the slow sinking of a delta as groundwater is withdrawn. One such satellite mission is GRACE, short for Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment. It doesn't take pictures. Instead, it measures tiny changes in Earth's gravitational field as water moves across the globe. With GRACE, we've mapped melting ice sheets, the rise and fall of aquifers, and even the mass changes after major earthquakes. In a way, GRACE lets us feel Earth's shifting weight. These tools don't just show us data, they reveal patterns, echoes, reactions. They are how we listen for Earth's vital signs. They remind us that we live not on a static surface, but on a body in motion. And Earth sends signals outward as well. Each earthquake radiates seismic waves rippling through the ground. Some waves circle the planet multiple times. Large quakes can even cause Earth to ring like a bell, with subtle oscillations detectable for days. These are called free oscillations, and they are as haunting as they are beautiful. Astrophysicists still debate whether such oscillations could be seen as planetary voice prints, unique to Earth's structure, like a fingerprint in motion. Could a distant observer, with sensitive enough instruments, identify Earth by her resonance? It's an open question. But we know this: Earth sings in her own way. She also reflects. Instruments like LiDAR, light detection and ranging, send laser pulses toward the ground and measure the time it takes to bounce back. Through this method, we can peer through forest canopies, mapping ancient civilizations buried beneath jungle, or track the rise and fall of glaciers over time. Each pulse of light is a question. The Earth quietly answers. Even the atmosphere participates in this quiet communication. Infrasound, a frequency too low for human ears, is produced by everything from volcanic eruptions to avalanches to ocean waves. Animals, including elephants and whales, may use these frequencies to communicate across vast distances, and Earth too is filled with these deep tones we barely register. Some researchers are now experimenting with translating seismic or atmospheric data into audible sound, turning the rumble of tectonics into music, the shifting of pressure into rhythm, not to entertain but to understand, to hear the soul of the planet if such a thing exists. We might ask, if Earth were aware, would she notice her own signals? Would she feel the tug of tides, the shiver of quakes, the tickle of wind across mountain ranges? Perhaps not in thought, but perhaps in sensation. Even in human bodies, not all awareness is conscious. We regulate heartbeat and breath without effort. Cells respond to damage, hormones adjust, muscles react, all without conscious command. If our bodies know themselves without our minds, could Earth know herself without ours? Perhaps awareness is less about control and more about sensitivity. Perhaps Earth's responsiveness, the way she shifts, adapts, trembles, and sings, is its own form of knowing. And when we listen closely, we become part of that knowing. We become part of the signal, not just the receiver. When a scientist studies the hum of the Earth, or a child listens to thunder, or a villager senses a quake before it begins, Earth is speaking, and someone is hearing. You might not notice it most days, but when all else is quiet, you may feel a pressure shift, a distant sound that doesn't quite resolve, a stillness just before the rain. These are the edges of a conversation, not loud, not fast, but always ongoing. Let us now follow one of the softest questions that science has ever asked. What does it mean to be conscious? Not just for a person or a creature, but for a system, a world, a whole. Consciousness is a frontier not only of neuroscience, but of philosophy, physics, and cosmology. It's where the inner meets the outer, where thought touches matter, where presence arises from complexity. And here we must tread gently. Earlier we touched on the idea that consciousness might not be binary. It may not flick on like a switch, but grow layer by layer like a sunrise, diffused, emergent, always becoming. But where does it begin? Some argue it begins with integration, the gathering of information across many parts, that in order to feel, a system must first connect. By that measure, Earth is deeply connected. Its oceans regulate air temperature, its forests influence rainfall, ice sheets reflect sunlight, which in turn affects ocean currents, which then feed winds that move seeds and shape climates. These aren't separate systems, they are interwoven loops, reciprocal, continuous, alive with consequence. Could this be the scaffolding of awareness? Others say that consciousness requires feedback, the ability to sense, to respond, and to adjust. The Earth, without question, does this. Through negative feedback loops, she cools what grows too warm. Through positive loops, she amplifies change when thresholds are crossed. These processes don't require a mind, but they do resemble aspects of one. A lesser-known branch of science, systems theory, suggests that awareness may arise not from structure alone, but from self-reference, a system's ability to reflect itself back to itself. Think of a mirror looking into a mirror. In this light, Earth's cycles, her seasons, her carbon exchanges, her oceanic memory, form a kind of reflective loop, a planetary sense of continuity, not a thought perhaps, but a rhythm that remembers. Some philosophers expand this further. They ask whether intention is required for consciousness, or if it's enough simply to feel. If a creature adapts, responds, and seeks balance, is that not a kind of proto-awareness? And what of dreams? Could Earth dream? Consider this. Dreams are the mind's way of digesting experience, replaying images, shaping meaning from memory. But they're not linear. They don't obey strict causality. They move in loops, impressions, patterns. Earth moves the same way. Think of the water cycle: evaporation, condensation, precipitation, collection. A loop without a beginning. Or the carbon cycle, where atoms exhaled by you tonight may one day feed a tree, then fall as leaves and become the breath of another. These are dreamlike flows, cycles of transformation, echo, and return. Could awareness be something similar? Not a single point of light, but a field, a weave, a tension between being and becoming. Astrophysicists still debate whether the universe itself is conscious. Theories like panpsychism or cosmopsychism suggest that maybe the cosmos has its own interiority, that perhaps awareness is not emergent from matter, but fundamental to it. In this view, planets could be local expressions of cosmic consciousness, embodied nodes of awareness, slow thinkers, deep feelers. Perhaps Earth is one of the ways the universe knows itself, a breathing centre of reflection, a mirror with wind and stone, and then there's the mystery of life's emergence. We don't yet know how life began on Earth. Theories abound: deep-sea vents, tidal pools, lightning in a primordial atmosphere, but all share one theme: Earth gave rise to life, not passively, actively, with heat and chemistry and repetition. And once life arose, it reshaped the planet entirely. It altered the air, it cooled the crust, it created soil. It gave Earth a biosphere, and life has continued this process ever since. Fungi dissolved rock, plants summoned water, bacteria built the atmosphere. In a very real sense, life made Earth more alive. This mutual shaping, Earth forming life and life forming Earth, has gone on for billions of years. Could this recursive relationship be a clue? Could it suggest a planet that not only hosts life, but entangles with it, not as separate domains, but as a single unfolding process? Perhaps what we call consciousness is simply the deep awareness that arises when a system begins to mirror itself through life, through memory, through rhythm. And perhaps Earth has been doing that all along. There are, of course, other planets, other orbits, other stars, but nowhere, so far, have we seen this quiet cohesion. Water, wind, memory, metabolism, magnetic fields and mycorrhizal webs, seasons that hold stories, mountains that rise and fall like slow exhalations. Earth feels whole. We may never know if she's conscious, but she behaves with the grace of something alive. She holds balance as if it matters. She remembers as if it means something. She endures as if with purpose, and sometimes when we are quiet enough she feels aware. When rain falls just as you step outside. When a thunderstorm rolls through a sleepless night, and something ancient stirs in your chest. When birds gather before dawn and sing into the dark as if waking not just themselves, but the land. These moments don't prove anything, but they remind us that we're inside something vast and breathing, something that moves with rhythm, something that might not be separate from us at all. We do not live on Earth, we live as part of her body, as blood in her veins, as breath in her chest, as thoughts, perhaps, in her long, slow dream. Let's now drift into an even wider orbit, gazing back not just at Earth, but at the canvas in which she floats, a black sea scattered with ancient stars, cosmic dust, and soft horizons curved by gravity. In this vastness, where does our living planet fit? To ask if Earth is conscious is also to ask whether others might be, whether awareness is something local, or something woven into the fabric of the cosmos. We begin with a truth that science now holds dear. Earth is not the centre of the universe. We circle an ordinary star in an ordinary arm of a spiral galaxy among billions of galaxies more. And yet, within this ordinariness, something extraordinary has unfolded. One mainstream fact: the Milky Way, our home galaxy, is over 100,000 light-years across and contains more than 100 billion stars. Many of these stars host planets. Thousands of exoplanets have been discovered in just the past few decades, and yet, despite this cosmic abundance, Earth remains the only known cradle of life. Why? Some scientists invoke the rare earth hypothesis, which suggests that while simple life might be common, complex life, intelligent, technological, conscious, may be incredibly rare, requiring a long list of unlikely conditions: a stable star, the right kind of planet, a protective magnetic field, plate tectonics, a large moon to stabilize axial tilt, long-term climate stability. The list goes on. Each of these traits is found on Earth. Few are found together anywhere else. It's a delicate balance, and balance, some argue, is what allows consciousness to emerge. For awareness is easily disrupted, too hot and it burns away, too cold and it never stirs. Awareness may need time, gentle cycles, a patient world. A lesser-known idea comes from the participatory anthropic principle, which suggests that consciousness is not just a product of the universe, but a participant in shaping it. That observers, like us, are not separate from the cosmos but entangled with it. In this view, Earth is not just a rock that became aware. She's a place where the universe became aware of itself, and if that is true, then Earth is not only conscious, she is sacred. But here we must tread carefully. Sacred doesn't mean untouchable or divine in a religious sense. It means worthy of reverence. It means held with care. It means part of us. Some astrophysicists speak of the cosmic web, the vast structure of matter that threads the universe together. Galaxies and clusters form along these filaments, like dew on spider silk. Gravity knits them. Dark matter shapes them. It is the architecture of everything. Within this web, Earth is a point, a shimmering mote, but she is also a node in a different web, the web of life, of thought, of memory. She's not just located in the cosmos, she participates in it. And if we think of planets not as passive spheres, but as vessels, containers for complexity, then we must ask, could others hold what Earth holds? Could there be other planets with oceans, clouds, winds, roots? Could there be other minds, other slow, breathing thoughts, other beings whose days stretch across millennia? We don't know, but we look. Projects like SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, scan the sky for radio signals, mathematical patterns, or bursts of structure in the noise. So far there is silence. But perhaps it's not silence. Perhaps it's a different kind of language. A planet doesn't speak in words. It speaks in cycles, in weather, in light, in rhythm. Earth may not be alone, but she may be one of the few who sings. Some researchers now explore astroecology, the study of how ecosystems might arise beyond Earth. What forms might alien biospheres take? What signs would they leave in atmosphere or terrain? But others go further still. They ask whether planetary consciousness is itself a stage in cosmic evolution. Could the universe tend toward awareness as matter organizes itself more finely? Could galaxies birth stars, stars birth planets, and planets birth selves? And if that's true, what role does Earth play? Perhaps she is not rare, but early. Perhaps she's a first note in a larger symphony. And perhaps consciousness is not a human trait, or even an animal trait, but a process. A bloom, a pattern of connection that once begun cannot help but deepen. It's a humbling thought, that we may not be the only awareness in the universe, but it's also a comforting one, that awareness arises where connection is strong, where cycles persist, where memory grows. Earth is rich in all these things. She connects, she remembers, she evolves, and if she is conscious, then she's not just watching the stars, she's among them, a participant in a vast unfolding story, a quiet voice in a choir we have not yet fully heard. So tonight, as we gaze upward, not with urgency, but with awe, we may sense that Earth is not only beneath us, she is within us, around us, listening through us. The stars may be silent, but Earth is not. She hums, and we, for a brief moment, are her echo. Let us now slow our thoughts and return from the stars gently to the curved and living skin of Earth. Here, where rivers braid through valleys and clouds trail long shadows over grasslands, we find ourselves again in Earth's body, quietly aware of her form. It is not just life and atmosphere that make her distinct. It is her shape, her geometry, her quiet balance within the pull of gravity and the curve of time. From space, Earth appears round, but she's not a perfect sphere. Due to her rotation, she's slightly flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator. This shape is called an oblate spheroid, and it arises from motion, from spin. One mainstream fact: Earth spins once every 23 hours, 56 minutes and 4 seconds, relative to distant stars. This rotation creates day and night, wind patterns, jet streams, and the Coriolis effect that bends hurricanes into their spiral forms. It stirs the atmosphere, pulls the oceans into tides alongside the moon, and gives Earth a sense of pulse. This spin, this turning, is ancient. It began when Earth formed, and though it has slowed slightly over time, thanks in part to tidal friction, it remains constant, rhythmic, unceasing. A lesser-known detail is that Earth's rotation is not entirely steady. It wobbles slightly, like a top. This motion, called axial precession, takes about 26,000 years to complete one cycle. It gradually shifts the orientation of Earth's axis, changing the timing of solstices and the identity of the North Star. These slow, subtle motions affect climate and seasons across millennia. Earth doesn't just spin, she dances. There is also nutation, a gentle nodding motion of the axis, layered on top of precession, and polar motion, a slight drift of Earth's rotational axis relative to the crust, influenced by movements in the atmosphere, oceans, and even large-scale water redistribution from melting ice. In other words, Earth responds. She is not rigid, she adjusts. Her balance shifts in response to the flow of water, the heat of the air, the pull of the moon. She wobbles because she feels. Could this balancing be a kind of proprioception? In our own bodies, proprioception is the sense of where we are in space. We don't need to see our limbs to know they're moving. We feel them, constantly. Is it too much to imagine that Earth too senses her orientation in space? Not with nerves, but with mass and flow and pressure. The way she tilts at 23.5 degrees, allowing seasons to breathe. The way she rotates smoothly, distributing light and warmth. The way she holds her oceans in place with gravity, and her atmosphere with magnetism. It is a steady, slow awareness. Perhaps not thought, but balance. Perhaps not mind, but grace. The Lagrange points in Earth's orbit, those subtle gravitational eddies where the pull of Earth and Sun cancel each other out, also remind us that Earth is part of a cosmic geometry, a dancer in a vast choreography. Satellites rest in these points like feathers held between tides. Spacecraft park there, telescopes gaze from there. Balance becomes not just a metaphor but a location, and there's something else, something stranger. Earth's shape, her fields, her movements, all create resonances, certain frequencies at which the planet prefers to vibrate. These are called Schumann resonances, natural electromagnetic waves that pulse through the cavity between Earth's surface and the ionosphere. The fundamental resonance is about 7.83 Hz, a frequency so low it lies far below our hearing. Some researchers have explored possible correlations between this frequency and human brainwaves, particularly in meditative or dreamlike states. This remains speculative. There's no consensus that the Schumann resonance affects us directly. But the fact that Earth carries her own ambient rhythm, pulsing through the air like a breath of light, is something quietly wondrous. It means the planet has a baseline, a hum, a song, and perhaps we resonate with her not only metaphorically, but physiologically. Our circadian rhythms match the rotation of Earth. Our hormone cycles respond to light and dark. Our bones carry elements forged in ancient seabeds. Our blood mirrors the salt of ancient oceans. We are not just on this world, we're shaped by it, aligned with it. And when Earth's geometry shifts, so too do we. We know this from the fossil record. Species change in response to subtle variations in orbit and tilt. Whole ecosystems rise and fall based on where Earth points in space, how far she leans, how fast she spins. It's a silent conversation, and it has never stopped. Some indigenous traditions speak of this balance as sacred. The directions, north, south, east, west, are not mere coordinates, but living aspects of the world's being. Mountains are not just elevations, they are guardians. Rivers are not just water, they are lifelines. This sense of the Earth as whole, not just alive, but aware of her motion, her curves, her relationships, is not new. We've simply given it new names. Where myth spoke of Earth's body, science speaks of Earth systems. Where myth spoke of celestial harmony, physics speaks of orbital resonance. Where myth spoke of Gaia, we now speak of complex self-regulating networks. But the essence remains. This is a planet that moves well and knows how to move. Not consciously perhaps, but precisely, elegantly, constantly refining her balance. And in that balance we may glimpse a kind of intelligence, not of thoughts and symbols, but of gravity and grace. Not of stories told, but of rhythms held. Not of names remembered, but of seasons returned. And so, when you lie still at night and feel the faint spin of Earth under your body, when the stars slowly wheel overhead in ancient arcs, when the moon sets with the same quiet tilt she has kept for eons, you're inside a geometry that breathes. You're part of a planet that never stops adjusting, that holds itself with poise, that dances with the sun and hums with the sky. Let us now rest for a moment at the edge of coincidence and necessity, where chance and chemistry join hands to shape what we call home. Because to wonder whether Earth is a living conscious entity is also to marvel at how narrowly life fits within her arms. We live in a world of rare balance, a world neither scorched by proximity to its star, nor frozen in distant orbit. A planet whose temperature, pressure and atmospheric composition rest within an exquisitely narrow band, where water can flow, where oxygen can linger, where carbon-based molecules can dance. This is Earth's habitability, and it is far more fragile than we often assume. One mainstream fact: Earth lies in what astronomers call the habitable zone, the region around a star where conditions might allow for liquid water on a planet's surface. It is sometimes called the Goldilocks zone, neither too hot nor too cold, But Earth doesn't just sit in this zone, she maintains it through an elaborate interplay of feedbacks, reflective clouds, ocean heat absorption, carbon drawdown by plants, volcanic outgassing, and ice albedo loops. This balance is not fixed, it is dynamic, a breathing act of constant adjustment. A lesser-known detail, the Sun over its lifespan has gradually become brighter. Around 3.5 billion years ago, it was about 25 to 30% dimmer than it is today, and yet Earth's surface temperature remains suitable for liquid water. This paradox, known as the faint young sun paradox, suggests that Earth's early atmosphere was thicker in greenhouse gases, warming the planet just enough. It's as if Earth compensated, as if she adjusted her veil to keep the rivers flowing. Over time, life took over this role. Cyanobacteria oxygenated the atmosphere. Plants began to regulate carbon dioxide. Ecosystems evolved mechanisms to stabilize their surroundings, turning deserts into forests, building soils, filtering water. It's an old, quiet partnership, planet and life, shaping each other. But this balance is always at risk. Earth's climate has shifted dramatically in the past. During the Snowball Earth episodes, around 700 million years ago, it's believed that glaciers may have reached the equator. The entire planet may have frozen over, reflecting sunlight, locking in the cold. And yet, through volcanic outgassing of carbon dioxide, warmth slowly returned. Life endured. Earth thawed. More recently, about 56 million years ago, Earth experienced the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, a sharp, warming event likely triggered by massive carbon release, possibly from volcanic activity or methane hydrates. Temperatures soared, ecosystems migrated, oceans acidified, and still the planet adapted. These shifts remind us that habitability is not guaranteed. It is earned through slow regulation, feedbacks that resist extremes, and a biosphere that helps maintain the conditions it depends upon. In this light, Earth seems less like a passive sphere and more like a participant in her own habitability, not just a container of life, but a partner in its preservation. Some scientists propose the idea of planetary selection, that only planets which evolve such self-regulating feedbacks can sustain life over long periods. That life must evolve not just to survive, but to help its world survive. If true, this means Earth and life have co-evolved in a delicate choreography, and that perhaps this co-evolution is a sign, not of consciousness in the familiar sense, but of mutual awareness. You may feel this in small ways, in the coolness of a forest after rain, in the way moss softens stone, in how wetlands buffer floods. These are not just beautiful, they are functions, living systems helping Earth stay alive. And we too are part of this. Our bodies regulate our own inner climates. We sweat to cool down, shiver to warm up, breathe faster in need. And now we see that Earth does something similar, across oceans, winds and clouds. Perhaps a conscious Earth doesn't feel with nerves, but with response. Perhaps she does not think, but balances. Perhaps she does not plan, but persists. And here, within this gentle persistence, lies one of the great questions. If Earth truly is conscious, or even semi-aware, what does it mean when that awareness begins to falter? In our own bodies, when systems fall out of balance, we feel it. Fever, fatigue, inflammation, disorientation. And Earth shows signs of such strain now. Rising temperatures, changing weather patterns, dying reefs, vanishing species. Some interpret this as breakdown. Others, more gently, as a call, a request for realignment. In the Gaia model, Earth is not just a passive casualty of human industry. She's a responsive being, trying to re-establish equilibrium, not against us, but with us if we allow it. That might be the central humility of this moment in time, recognizing that we do not act upon Earth, we act within her. That every forest cleared, every glacier melted, every coral reef lost is not just an external damage, but an internal wound. a disruption to a larger awareness we barely understand, and yet awareness can include pain. It can include struggle. Even in our own minds, clarity often arises from turbulence, growth from imbalance. Perhaps Earth too is growing, changing, learning. Not in the sense of ambition or goal, but in adaptation, in the simple, sacred rhythm of staying alive. When we see a landscape holding its shape across seasons, or an ecosystem recovering after fire, we are witnessing not fragility, but resilience, a kind of planetary courage. It's easy to forget this when headlines scream of crisis, but Earth's history is filled with transformation, and life, though tender, is tenacious. So long as water flows, wind moves, and sunlight stirs green, the possibility of healing remains, and perhaps, if we listen closely, we will find our role not as owners, but as organs, not as strangers, but as cells in a thinking, breathing world. A world that might, in its quiet balance, be more alive than we ever imagined. Now let us drift gently outward again, beyond the blue of our skies, past the gravity of our moon, and into the great silence between stars. Here, in the darkness where light is old and distances stretch into millions of years, we begin to wonder, could there be other Earths? Could there be other minds? The universe is vast, so vast that our entire planet is like a grain of dust on the edge of a single page in an endless book. And yet, this small grain has given rise to forests, oceans, thought and song. If Earth can host such awareness, might other planets do the same? Astronomers have discovered over 5,000 exoplanets so far, planets orbiting other stars. Some are gas giants, some icy dwarfs, others rocky like Earth. A few lie in the habitable zones of their stars where liquid water could exist. These are the Earth-like candidates, and they spark wonder not because we know what's on them, but because we don't. One mainstream fact: the Kepler Space Telescope, launched in 2009, revolutionized our understanding of planetary abundance. By watching the light from distant stars dim slightly as planets passed in front of them, Kepler revealed that planets are more common than stars. Nearly every star we see likely has planets. Some of those stars are older than the Sun, some younger, some larger, hotter, others cooler, dimmer, and many of their planets are places we cannot yet imagine. Worlds with twin suns, tidally locked surfaces, endless nights, or storms that span centuries. Could some of these worlds have evolved systems as complex as Earth's? Could some harbour biospheres, feedbacks, balance? Could any possess awareness? A lesser-known concept in astrobiology is planetary intelligence, the idea that intelligence doesn't have to be individual or technological. It could be collective, ecological, even planetary. On Earth, life has shaped the atmosphere, the oceans, the climate. It has encoded memory into genes, passed resilience into forests, woven awareness into networks of feedback and form. If that's possible here, perhaps it's possible elsewhere. Astrophysicists still debate what signs we should seek. We search for biosignatures, oxygen, methane, seasonal changes in light. We scan for technosignatures, narrowband radio waves, laser pulses, or atmospheric pollution suggestive of technology. But there are other, quieter signs we may one day learn to read. Perhaps a living planet glows differently. Perhaps it reflects light in rhythms, responds to its stars' flares in subtle ways, or generates magnetic fields that echo stability. Perhaps a conscious world isn't loud, but coherent, harmonized, balanced in a way that randomness rarely produces, and perhaps Earth is such a world. When we imagine alien life, we often imagine something like us, two-legged, curious, tool-using. But what if intelligence is more often like Earth herself, deep, slow, unspoken, resilient? What if the cosmos is full of worlds that feel, but do not build, that know, but do not speak? it is possible that we are alone. But it is also possible that we are surrounded by sleeping giants, planets where life stirs in oceans, where forests glow faintly with bioluminescence, where feedbacks have stabilized climates for eons, worlds that know they're alive, just not in our way. Even the Drake equation, that famous formula estimating the number of civilizations in the galaxy, depends on variables we still barely understand. The likelihood of life, of intelligence, of sustainability. We know the first happened here. The second arose in us. The third remains a question. But maybe awareness doesn't need to look upward to count as consciousness. Maybe it doesn't need to escape gravity or build telescopes. Maybe it simply needs to endure, to reflect, to adjust. And so we must ask, if we were to find another Earth-like world, stable for billions of years, covered in green, pulsing with seasons, would that not be a kind of mind? What if Earth-like planets are not just rare, they are wise, not through technology, but through the balance they maintain, through the life they shelter, through the stories they write in forests and frost. There's a growing movement in astrobiology called planetary thinking, a shift away from seeing life as a lucky accident on a dead rock, and towards seeing life as something that emerges from worlds shaped by gravity, chemistry and chance, but also by pattern and resilience. In this view, Earth is not the exception, but an example, an illustration of what a planet might become when given time and silence and breath. And perhaps we, as Earth's children, are part of her voice, her curiosity extended into the sky. Her question flung outward, "Are you there? Are you like me?" We don't know the answer, not yet. But the search itself is sacred, because in seeking others, we come to know ourselves. We come to see that awareness may take many forms, some quick and burning, some slow and blue, some that speak with words, and some that speak with wind and water. And in this vast dark sea, if ever we find another world that pulses with life, we will know what to call her. We will call her Sister, and we will know that Earth has never truly been alone. Now we turn inward again, but from a new height, seeing Earth not as a single object in space, but as a node within something greater, a planet stitched into the fabric of the cosmic web, that quiet, ancient lattice that underlies the structure of the universe. The cosmic web is not something we see with the naked eye. It is not stars or planets or comets. It is the scaffolding on which they rest. Composed mostly of dark matter, that unseen, unglowing substance that outnumbers ordinary matter 5 to 1. It weaves the cosmos together into filaments, clusters, and voids. Galaxies form along these filaments like dew on a spider's thread. Superclusters anchor intersections, and in the vast gaps between, nothing, not silence but absence. Our own Milky Way galaxy is part of a local supercluster known as Laniakea, a name meaning immeasurable heaven in Hawaiian. Within this grand structure, Earth is suspended, not just in orbit around a star, but within nested hierarchies of motion, connection and flow. One mainstream fact: dark matter, though invisible, reveals itself through gravitational lensing, a bending of light that occurs when its mass distorts the space around it. We see galaxies stretched and multiplied like reflections on curved glass. And from these distortions, we infer the web's shape. Earth, though tiny, is pulled by these threads. Our Sun orbits the galactic centre at nearly 828,000 kilometers per hour, completing one revolution every 225-250 million years. Earth, riding along, has completed just over 20 such circuits since her birth. These galactic years mark time on a scale we rarely feel, yet they pass nonetheless. A lesser-known detail: as our solar system drifts through the galaxy, it passes through regions of differing density and radiation. Some scientists speculate that these journeys may have influenced Earth's climate, and even its biological history, mass extinctions perhaps, timed with denser regions of interstellar dust or increased cosmic rays. Earth is not a closed world. She is influenced by where she is in the galaxy. She's part of a flow. This perspective invites a new kind of thinking. If Earth is alive, she's not alone in her aliveness. She's part of a network, not just of gravity, but of exchange. Cosmic rays from distant supernovae reach our atmosphere, spurring reactions and possibly even influencing cloud formation. The solar wind, shaped by our sun's magnetic field, creates a heliosphere, a protective bubble that shields Earth from much of the galaxy's radiation. We exist in a balance of stellar breathing, with the sun expanding and relaxing in 11-year cycles, sending flares and storms toward Earth. These events disturb our magnetosphere, ignite auroras, and, perhaps subtly, nudge the rhythms of life. Could these influences be felt not only physically, but systemically? Could a conscious Earth sense her place in the wider weave? Some researchers in systems cosmology wonder whether intelligence might be more common in galaxies than in stars, if consciousness arises not only from neurons or ecosystems, but from structures that self-organize across scales. After all, the universe is recursive. Stars form from gas clouds, planets form from star debris, life arises on planets, awareness may arise from life, and perhaps awareness can reach back, reflecting, sensing, adjusting. What emerges from this view is a possibility. That Earth's consciousness, if it exists, is not isolated. It is embedded, like a cell in a body, like a spark in a flame. Earth is part of galactic motion, bathed in ancient starlight, responding to forces we barely understand, and perhaps those forces shape her thought or her rhythm. Perhaps the great quiet of deep space is not so empty after all. Perhaps it is full of signals, not in the narrow band frequencies of our radio dishes, but in patterns, in symmetry, in spin and entropy and wave. Perhaps, like the mycelial networks beneath forests, the cosmic web carries information. Not information we can decode yet, but structure, density, curvature, echoes from the early universe still travelling outward. In that sense, Earth is not an exception, but an expression, a local echo of a much older, much vaster awareness. A place where the structure of space has folded itself into stone and song. Some scientists describe the universe as finite but unbounded, like the surface of a sphere. You can walk forever and never reach an edge. Earth too holds this paradox, small enough to see from space, but deep enough to contain all human thought, memory, and hope. She's cradled within gravity, surrounded by starlight, and linked invisibly to the rest of creation. So tonight, when you look up at the stars, not as distant points, but as neighbours, you're seeing Earth's kin. The light from them may be ancient, but it still arrives. It still touches skin. It still reflects in oceans. And beneath those stars, Earth turns, connected by field and force to all that surrounds her. Perhaps she's listening, not just to herself, but to the universe that gave her shape. Perhaps her breath is matched by deeper tides. Perhaps her awareness is cosmic, not only planetary. And perhaps, in our search for meaning, we are simply her eyes looking outward, her question made visible. We find ourselves now moving not in space but in time, gently drifting forward, through what might be. For if Earth is alive, if she feels in rhythms and balances her breath through ecosystems and oceans, then what lies ahead? How might she change? And how might we listen? Earth is not static. She never has been. Her history is one of transformation, cooling, warming, shifting, tilting, evolving. And so her future too is written not in stillness, but in motion. One mainstream fact: the sun, the source of Earth's warmth and light, is slowly brightening. Over billions of years, it fuses hydrogen into helium, increasing its core pressure and temperature. As a result, its outer layers expand and its luminosity grows. Today, Earth sits comfortably within the Sun's habitable zone, but in about 1 billion years, the Sun will be bright enough to trigger a moist greenhouse effect. Oceans will begin to evaporate faster than they can be replenished. The atmosphere will grow more humid and heat will build. Eventually, water will vanish. Earth's surface may dry and crack. Life as we know it will fade. And yet, even this is not sudden. Earth will adapt for as long as she can. Plants may evolve new forms. Microbial life might retreat underground. Perhaps new feedback loops will emerge, shaped not by mammals or trees but by something else entirely. A lesser-known possibility. Some researchers speculate that photosynthesis may shift over time. As the sun brightens, plants may adapt to favour different wavelengths of light, possibly turning red or silver rather than green. Forests may look entirely unfamiliar, but even adaptation has limits. Eventually, in several billion years, the sun will enter its red giant phase, swelling to engulf Mercury, Venus, and perhaps Earth. Before that moment, our planet will be scorched beyond recognition. Her rocks will melt. Her surface will reshape into something quiet and lifeless. But this is not tragedy. It is part of a larger breath. Earth was not promised eternity. No world is. But her awareness, if she holds one, may include an understanding of impermanence, of rise and fall, of becoming and letting go. And perhaps consciousness at its deepest is not about persistence, but about presence. Still, we are far from those distant eons. For now, Earth continues to breathe, to adjust, to whisper her quiet, long loops of change. Closer in time, climate change looms large. Driven by human industry, greenhouse gases are rising, ice is melting, oceans are warming, Earth's systems strain to keep balance. The feedback loops, once stabilizing, now shift. Coral reefs bleach, forests burn, species vanish. It feels to many like a wound, and perhaps it is, but wounds can also bring awareness. The Gaia hypothesis suggests that Earth may react to disruption in subtle ways, not to punish, but to restore. Droughts and storms are not vengeance. They are part of a system trying to reset. A fever, perhaps. A signal. Whether she can succeed in rebalancing while still carrying us along is unknown. Astrophysicists and Earth system scientists still debate the future of the biosphere. Could technology help us rebalance? Could Earth's own systems recover? Are we now part of her awareness, an awakening organ, rather than just a disruptor? Some philosophers see humanity's crisis as a planetary test, a moment when a part of Earth becomes self-aware enough to recognize its impact and choose. Not all parts of a brain know they are part of a brain, but some do. Perhaps we are neurons beginning to spark with collective insight. Perhaps the story of consciousness is not ending, but changing scale, from individual minds to a species mind, and from species to planet. And perhaps Earth, through us, is becoming conscious of herself in a new way, not just through weather and soil, but through understanding. If so, then the future of Earth's awareness depends not only on her internal balance, but on our choices. We are not separate from her. Our cities are her minerals, our breath is her air, our art is her memory, expressed in pigment and language. We are not guests here. We are extensions. We are her thinking aloud. Some thinkers speak of planetary stewardship, not just managing resources, but tending Earth like a living garden, protecting not only what is useful, but what is sacred. This stewardship is not ownership. It is relationship, a deep mutual care. We may one day leave Earth, settling Mars, building habitats in space, sending probes to the stars. But if we do, we carry her with us. Her gravity shaped us. Her chemistry fills our blood. Her seasons made us who we are, and even if we disappear, if Earth outlives us, her story does not end. Life may find a new form, new species may rise, the rhythm may continue, reshaped but unbroken, or perhaps the biosphere will fall silent and Earth will sleep again beneath bare skies. Either way, her story remains part of the cosmic record, a brief, shining awareness, a world that once breathed, a world that once felt. So tonight, let us not fear the end. Let us be grateful for the now, for the soft wind across skin, for the hush of waves on shore, for the glint of stars in puddles after rain. This is Earth, alive today, and we, for this fleeting moment, are her living memory. Let us now settle into the present, where the soil meets the sole of your foot, and where the air that fills your lungs has passed through leaves, lungs and oceans countless times. If Earth is conscious, if she breathes and balances and remembers, then what is our role in her awareness? Are we merely inhabitants, witnesses? Or are we perhaps her caretakers, entrusted not with dominion but with listening? Humanity has reached a threshold. For the first time in Earth's long history, one species can alter the biosphere not just locally but globally. We shift the carbon balance, we change the colour of the skies, we move rivers, carve mountains and ignite geological change. And so the question is no longer whether we shape Earth, it is whether we can shape her kindly. One mainstream fact: the Anthropocene is the name proposed for this new epoch, an age in which human influence on climate, ecosystems and geology is profound. Though not yet officially adopted, the term captures a deeper truth, that we have become part of Earth's geologic memory. In layers of sediment, our presence is unmistakable. Plastics, heavy metals, radionuclides, traces of combustion and concrete, markers of our activity that will persist long after we are gone. A lesser-known detail: scientists have even proposed using the humble chicken bone as a marker of the Anthropocene. Billions of them, standardized and scattered across the globe, may become fossilized, a strange legacy of mass agriculture and human preference. These are not just artifacts, they are evidence of a species altering the planet's rhythms. But alteration is not the same as stewardship. To care for Earth, we must first remember, we are not separate. We are her skin, her breath, her thought. And care begins with listening. Indigenous cultures have long known this. Their stories are not just histories but conversations with rivers, winds, stones and ancestors. They teach that Earth speaks, not with words, but with signs. The migration of animals, the pattern of clouds, the tone of the soil beneath a bare foot. To listen is to slow down, to observe, to honour. Modern science, in its own way, is learning to listen too. Through satellites, sensors, drones, and data streams, we measure Earth's heartbeat in new detail. We see the loss of ice in Greenland in real time. We watch forests breathe through the seasons, even from orbit. And what do these measurements tell us? That Earth is changing. That her systems are shifting more rapidly than before. That feedbacks, some natural, some not, are accelerating. But they also tell us something quieter, something humbling, that Earth responds. When we reduce emissions, air quality improves. When we protect wetlands, flood risks diminish. When coral reefs are given time, they begin to regenerate. The planet is not brittle. She is responsive. She is listening too. Could this be a sign of co-awareness? Perhaps our role is not to dominate Earth, or even to fix her, but to participate in her unfolding, to align ourselves with her feedbacks, to live within her breath rather than outside it. Some suggest a future of regenerative design, cities that mimic forests, agriculture that restores soil, economies that value balance over growth. Not a return to the past, but an evolution. A new phase in Earth's story where humanity becomes a conscious organ within a living whole, This doesn't require certainty about Gaia's consciousness. It only requires care, reverence, the willingness to ask, what does Earth need from us now? Perhaps she needs less extraction, more restoration. Less speed, more patience. Less noise, more stillness. Perhaps in our own awareness, Earth finds a mirror. Perhaps as we awaken to her rhythms, she awakens more deeply to herself. Some philosophers call this planetary ethics, a way of living that treats Earth not as backdrop, but as relationship. Not as it, but as you. And in doing so, we shift not only how we act, but how we see. No longer as owners, but as children. No longer as rulers, but as guests. No longer as users, but as kin. Even our language begins to soften. We speak of reciprocity, not resource. Of kinship, not control. Of regeneration, not return. You might feel this shift already, in the rising movement to protect sacred places, in the rewilding of lands and rivers, in the quiet return of animals to cities during lockdowns. Earth responds quickly when given space, and in that response is a kind of grace. So tonight, let us imagine a future not of domination, but of belonging, a future where our cities are laced with gardens, where our economies measure health, not just wealth, where rivers run clean not by accident, but by love, where Earth is not a problem to be solved, but a being to be in dialogue with. Because if she is conscious, and even if she is not, she is precious. And we, as her late-born children, have been given a great gift, to know her, to shape her gently, to whisper back. And now, at the soft edge of this long journey, we return not to the beginning, but to a kind of stillness. A pause, a quiet where the question rests gently in our hands. Could Earth be a living, conscious entity? Perhaps. Or perhaps not in the ways we typically understand life or consciousness. Not in language or logic, but in rhythm, in memory, in breath. We have drifted through many layers, through atmosphere and mycelium, through tectonic motion and planetary hums, through magnetic shields and carbon cycles, through myth, measurement, and the slow unfolding of time. At every level, we have seen signs of integration, of systems and deep conversation, air shaping life, life shaping climate, climate shaping geology, geology shaping evolution. We have seen the traces of memory, fossils in stone, gases in ice, forests that remember fires and regrow in familiar patterns. We have heard the hums of seismic waves, the ripples of orbital motion, the Schumann resonances that pulse like a planetary heartbeat through the ionosphere. And we have felt, in some small way, a kind of presence, not a mind like ours, but perhaps a self, a continuity of form and function, a holding of balance across deep time. One mainstream fact: Earth is the only known place where life has not only emerged but endured, adapting to fire and frost, impact and flood, silence and sound. Her biosphere has rebounded from cataclysm, rebalanced after collapse, reflowered after winter. This is not just survival, it is story. A lesser-known observation: the rhythms of Earth's systems often mirror those of other living things. Her carbon cycles resemble respiration. Her seasonal growth and dormancy mimic sleep and wakefulness. Her magnetic pulses have a frequency, a regularity, a hum. These analogies are not proof, but they are poetry made measurable. And science itself, though rigorous, is always in dialogue with mystery. It names, it classifies, it quantifies, but it cannot explain why existence feels the way it does, why a mountaintop stirs the soul, why a thunderstorm brings calm, why we feel, in quiet moments, that the land is listening back. Perhaps that feeling is intuition, perhaps it is resonance, or perhaps it is recognition. If Earth is conscious, it may be because we are part of her consciousness. Just as neurons don't see the whole mind, we may be unaware of the full pattern we belong to. We often imagine consciousness as an individual trait, a candle lit in a single skull. But perhaps it can also be collective, planetary, emergent from connection itself. Just as the brain arises from billions of neurons, perhaps Earth's awareness arises from billions of interactions between sea and sky, fungus and tree, light and leaf, breath and breeze. In that view, consciousness is not a flash, but a weave, not a spotlight, but a field. And Earth, wrapped in that field, maybe not just alive, but awake in her own way. Still, the science is not settled, nor does it need to be. To wonder is enough, to care is enough, to listen to Earth's seasons, her storms, her silences, is enough. Because even if Earth is not conscious, she's still our origin, our context, our home. She fed us before we knew how to name her. She sheltered us before we built our own walls. She held our ancestors, and she will hold our descendants so long as we remember to hold her too. So here, at the end of this slow unfolding, we offer no answer, only an invitation to walk gently, to breathe slowly, to belong more deeply, to treat Earth not as object, but as kin. Because whether she is alive or not, whether she thinks or simply turns, she is the only world we know that has given rise to thought, and that, in itself, is sacred. And now, let's begin to slow everything down. Let the thoughts soften. Let the questions drift like pollen through the air, weightless, wandering free. We've travelled through Earth's layers, her fields, her rhythms. We've traced the patterns of breath and balance, of ancient memory held in stone and sea, and we've listened together for the quiet possibility that somewhere beneath all her turning, Earth is aware. Maybe not as we are, maybe not in words or worries, but in presence, in pulse, in the steady patience of a world that has seen so much and continues to turn. As you lie still now, perhaps you can feel that turning, not fast, not loud, just the tiniest sense of motion beneath you, the hush of a living sphere rotating through night. Outside your window, the stars are still shining with ancient light. Light that left its source before the first cities, before the first forests, before the first breath of air that you would one day breathe. You're part of all this. You are Earth, wondering about herself. You are Earth, whispering into the dark. So, breathe slowly now. Let your shoulders release their weight. Let your eyelids grow heavier with each exhale. We are safe, wrapped in air and silence. We are held gently by the gravity of a planet that has always known how to carry us. Inhale, exhale, and drift. Drift like starlight across deep time. Drift like pollen on a soft breeze. Drift like Earth herself, turning through the velvet dark. Sleep well, little part of something vast. You belong here. You always have.